Hello, welcome to today's astrology study group. And we are continuing a little bit of looky-see, our study of health, looking at your chart. So we're looking at the houses of health and what associations are associated with the houses, the signs, the planets, using the aspects. The same old kind of, but we're just putting it in a new, kind of in a new way. Ironing out the associations and all the correlations, because you'll start to see things will just create the patterns that we keep finding in astrology. So applying that to our health, I think, is one of the biggest things that we can do with astrology. So today we'll start to look at the houses and their associations with the health, the health of a person. And then we'll also, not today, but we'll look at the signs, and then we'll look at planets. And you kind of can't look at it without keeping all of that in mind, because there's a lot of overlap, which I'll mention as we go through the different correlations. For instance, you'll see the first house will be a lot, that it's naturally like Aries, and that it would also naturally have an affinity also for Mars. So you already know some of these, the way things kind of stack in your mind. That let's say Mars, rules, other than the sun and the moon ruling one sign, all of the other planets rule two. And then we have modern signs, the modern planets kind of undoing that a little bit. But if we look at the ancient way of that, if you just think about, Venus rules both Taurus and Libra, and Mars rules both Aries and Scorpio. Now we've associated Pluto with Scorpio as well, but secondary ruler, or however you want to see that. Mercury, Gemini, and Virgo. What else? Might as well name them all. Saturn, Capricorn and Aquarius, and Jupiter, Sagittarius and Pisces. So it's pretty neat that way, but we can also associate the modern rulers, and I'll go back and forth in all of it. So it's just different lenses basically that we use. So let's look at this today. So our first house, the above-most part of our body is the head, right? The head, the mind, the hair, the skin, the top of the head, the brain, would all be ruled, all be first house kind of parts of the body. Also the physical ability, the general health are covered by the first house of astrology. It indicates the native's physical stature, their vitality, their vigor. That's why it's looked at as one of the houses of health. I kind of named this wrong. These are just houses. Well, they got the health associations, yeah, but then I put a little asterisk by the ones that totally correlate with the houses when we look at health issues. So that's why you'll see the little asterisk by the 1st, 6th, 8th, and 12th. All right, we're going to move on. And again, these are general, and these go way more extensive than this, but I have to start building, giving you something to build on, so we can, once we have a little shingle or the little hook in place, we can add more onto it. So the second house kind of continues the head. It's just like more of our face, the right eye, the teeth, the tongue, the voice, the nose, which, you would all think it would be kind of Aries blending into the Taurus, right? You think about that way. And a lot of this correlates with embryology, how the fetus develops. So maybe another time we'll look at that correlation too. All right, so we got the brain state, the nails. However, high fever, diseases of the heart, stomach and skin, bone fractures, leprosy. We got to look at what leprosy is. I think that's just a real bad immune, maybe fungal problem. Yeah, and then how the body just becomes a host to rotting. That is so weird. Okay, internal fever, being hot, because again, you get that Aries coming into the Taurus part, in the head. Brain on fire, because that's all that area, are also caused by the weakening of the second house. Then we move on into the third house, and we're getting more into, let's just give you some associations, slightly the Gemini part, but it's not, I don't want to give you that exact correlation, but there's a lot of overlap. So we have it moving down into the throat, how you swallow, the collarbones, coming into the hands and the lungs, regulating breathing. All body growth of all things fall under the third house. However, it can cause disease of the head, poisoning, cuts, wounds, sore eyes, itches, blood pressure, loss of energy, etc. Moreover, diseases of the female organs, bone fracture, tumors, cancer, piles, menstrual disorder, ulcers, dysentery, rectal diseases, chickenpox also fall under the governance of the third house. There's probably a lot that we can build on and correlate. So we'll start correlating, the different data about some of these areas. So, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, why would I have, blood pressure issues, poisoning, cuts, wounds. I'm thinking, cuts, wounds, because the hands are so busy. The hands are moving, and you usually have sharp things sometimes. So that could incur that. Sore eyes. I have to think about that one. Itches, because it's a skin and it's fast and it's like a nervous sort of a disorder. So we got the nervous system being activated as well because it's under that mercurial influence. Cancer, piles, piles, hemorrhoids, distended veins. So we probably have some correlation there. As we probably see more connection with Gemini, we'll be able to associate some more of these and see when we're getting into like the menstrual, the ulcers, dysentery, we're moving further into the digestive tract. So we're starting into, where it comes down from the throat into the first part of the stomach, and that whole area piled up in there. And then it sort of overlaps with our fourth house. So it's our chest, our heart, and more of the lungs, more blood pressure, because, the lungs go through a lot of area there. The breasts of women come under the fourth house, probably because of the nurturingness of them, moon, milk, child, doing child rearing. So that would just make sense. However, this house is mostly related to the diseases caused by women's hormones and has a tendency to weaken the body part up to a certain limit, which can even cause death. All right, so probably over estrogen. I would think this one would be more higher estrogen, or maybe as the liver, it has to be denatured, has to denature everything. So because we're getting into that digestive area, if we have excess estrogens, then they can't be cleared by the liver, and that might be why that's emphasis there. Fifth house, the upper abdomen, more of the heart. Now I'm looking at this, we got a few things with heart and blood, and we have the actual heart muscle. Okay, so we got one function of heart, which would be the muscular function of it, the beating it. We've got the protein heart, we've got the B vitamins and the vitamin E that are responsible for the valves opening and closing, not leaking and causing murmurs. We have the pleural, cavity around there. We have the blood vessels. We have the oxygenation and the venous blood. So there's a lot, when we say heart here. So I'm just going to keep that in mind, that there's, we'll sort this out more, unpack it. So it may be just a little like, why does it say heart in 3 different ones? So we have different functions of the heart. So we have, again, the heart muscle, the heart beating itself, the valves. We have the actual oxygenation when it goes connecting with the breathing. That's a whole separate part. And then we've got, the venous return, another whole separate part. So we that's why we it's sort of spread out that way. I hope that's making sense. All right. Fifth house, the upper abdomen, heart, gallbladder. And this, this is so funny. The gallbladder is called the great imitator. So a lot of times there's heart symptoms and heart problems, and it's usually a gallbladder acting up, or oftentimes, or it's been an old time culprit because, if the gallbladder, if you're not emulsifying your fats, then they're doing a lot of havoc in the digestive tract, making gas, creating leaky gut, causing distension, being fermented. There's, it just creates a lot of problems. All right. So that's why we have gallbladder nerve. So it would also affect your vitality, remember, because this is sort of the natural house of Leo. So that, if it's a heart problems and you got a whole gut that's all messed up, you're not going to be very vital. And your intestines, which is starting to come into the Virgo, you'll see the next one, are starting to become involved, because you got the upper intestines where you absorb, and then you've got the large intestine, which your body pulls in out all the water and tries to get whatever it can. It tries to grab electrolytes and minerals while it's creating a stool to then get rid of. All right, so it's also intelligence, thinking. Sperm and womb come under the 5th house of astrology. That would probably be because of the embryonic correlations. However, it is also called the house of cure or absence of sickness. That's because the sun rules the 5th house, right? All right, during the period of 5th house, the state of people improves and they find themselves moving toward a stable health state. So that might be something to look for if you have good transits, or maybe the sun is in your 5th house, if you ever have to go through any elective surgery. Just not my favorite thing, but sometimes you may need to. Okay, 6th house. Now we're back to another house of health. Before I actually unpack that one, let me just say this. Why the 1st and the 6th and the 8th and the 12th? Let me give you the 1st and the 6th and the 8th correlation. So you got your 1st house as your outer expression, who you are. It's your vitality. That's the essence of you rising, that energy right then and there. So that gives you that outer, what do I want to say the word? Beginning point. And then if you look across the chart, and the 7th house is opposite of the 1st. So that would, that's opposite. It's 180 degrees. And each house off of that, either way, the 6th house coming back or the 8th house going the other way, are your inconjuncts or quincunx at the 150 degree angle. So both of those would be, are related to health. All right, the first one, the 6th house to the 1st, is that odd angle. And you think about, that's your outer self, who you are and what you want to do with mixing with your daily habits. So that's where things can get off quite quickly. Maybe the self wants to do something and the daily habits say no. It's like, no, you can't get up and run and just have a latte and expect to function. We need food. We need good food. We also need, rest. And, so anyway, there's the conflict there, because sometimes our best self is not in our best self-interest. All right. And then the other way, the Scorpio side, if we had to do that, if it were the natural house of Aries, it would be sort of the Virgo house, and then the 8th house, the Scorpio house, or your 8th house, another house of health. You've got that. You've got other people's stuff on one side, other people's concerns. So it goes, it goes from you to then not only having to balance somebody else, but somebody else's stuff and their concerns. And that's also, your deepest, all of our deepest emotions, deepest fears, deepest things. And that's the place where chronic disease develops, that area. So we have to look at that area as chronic, because you'll see over time those habits will develop into the chronic diseases that are there. You may not see it when you're young, maybe now with all the crap that's going on in our world and all the very recent things, the bioweapon things that are being jabbed at us are creating a lot of problems and creating these conditions faster. So we got to look at the condition of the 8th house big time to look at degeneration and chronic disease. Okay. And then just the other reference of why the 12th house, it's right next to the 1st house. And, things that are either in conjunct, which we just talked about, or right next to, are difficult. So the 12th house is activated because it's the natural house of endings. And that would also be your inner psyche, your unconscious, which rules the show. So we definitely need to look at that. All right, so there's more. I'm just giving you the overview so we can, you kind of get the why that's, you get the interconnection of how this all works, because it's beautiful once you see the whole picture. We're moving on. Part 2 here. Sixth house is our digestive system. This is the natural Virgo kind of area. You got the kidneys, uterus, anus fall under this area. Also, it's known as the house. This house is also known as the house of sickness because of this disparity, is what I was just telling you about. Moreover, any planets connected with this can cause, I don't know if they should say can cause disease, they can indicate. Let's just take that word out of there. Doesn't ever do that, but sometimes, okay. All right, so the weakening of this house means your health will suffer and there are chances of falling sick. Falling sick. All right, the 7th house, we're moving into that Libra area, into the kidneys and the uterus. It's like that in lower abdomen part of the body. Uterus, ovaries, sperm, prostate. I would also say sigmoid colon, end of the tailbone, the coccyx area. Come under this area. Maybe coccyx could even be 8th house. You'd have to just kind of see. All right. Diseases of the face, I guess, because it's facing back at you, right? Venereal disease, because that's something you would, I guess, encounter with others. Indigestion, throat trouble, diabetes, sexual incompetence can also affect you during this period. So when you have transits going through there. Moreover, impotency, dropsy is old word for kidney problems. I guess when you can't pee, or painful urination. Fever, diseases of the glands, gonorrhea, goiter, gout, crystals, urethral diseases, hernias, general debility are caused by weakening of that house or transits in that house too. So we kind of look at this for both ways. 8th house, now we got our other little asterisk there, external genitalia, organ mutilation, long illnesses. I guess this would be certain cultures that do some of these things. I don't want to get into it, but it is there because it is an 8th house Scorpio issue. Accidents, sex fall under the 8th house. However, it's also a direct bearing upon one's longevity or span in the life. Again, this was our chronic disease area. Moreover, a weakening of this house causes misfortune, mental anxiety, surgery, etc. 9th house symbolizes the Sagittarian house. So we have the knees, thighs, joints. I would say the bones and the tissue connecting to the joints. Bones is kind of more Saturn, but we'll get there. So we're kind of just defining part of this. However, it can also cause weaknesses, stomach pain. When your knees get weak because you're all under stress, you can't digest. So it's sort of reflexes back because it's a sympathetic, parasympathetic, a fight or flight thing. That it's not stomach pain so much like a problem with the stomach, but it's I'd say an adrenal issue. Anyway, damage, loss of limbs, bone fractures, disease of bones. However, it's also related to teeth, skin, blindness, mental worry, wounds, paralysis, hysteria, tumors, baldness, all fall under the governance of the 9th house. And we have to look at what's his name? Bill E. Rex, I believe, with the book of, oh God, can't think off the top of my head. Rulerships. Yeah. So that's an amazing book. I mean, going through like almost every topic you can think of and every word and having a rulership. So we have to look at that some more. All right, 10th house, almost the same function as the 9th. However, it's usually contain more diseases like stomach pain, blindness, wounds, joint pain, bone fractures. I beg to differ just a little bit on like stomach stuff and blindness. I don't know, but wounds, joint pain, bone issues, mineralization, crystallization of things, whether there's, bone and cartilage. Sometimes there's problems when there's hard cartilage where it should be soft and soft stuff where it should be hard. You don't have the right mineralization. 11th house, we're getting a little bit lower on the body. So we're getting more of the Aquarian. So we get the body parts of calf. And then again, some of this, like on the left side, left ear, left arm, would be embryology, how that, the embryo was unfolding. However, this house is also related to, I don't know if I would say this. This is more, you get more chronic things indicated by the eighth house, but I guess maybe how it affects your life would be, because that's when you're dealing with others. That's your whole groups, right? Not the others as relationships. All right. Moreover, the horoscopes of sick people reveal the diseases they experience are generally governed by the what is that? By the where this is located. Okay, so whatever what would you say? Whatever is the ruler of that house is going to affect that. Show you, which we'll get into in a minute. And then the last one, the 12th house, our left eye, insomnia, the balance of mind, disability, feet, foots, death, because this is the house of endings, physical pleasure and sorrow. It's also the 12th house is also the area of hospitalization, imprisonment, loss of property, marriage problems, and generally relates to the cures of diseases according to medical astrology. All right, now let me give you a new, come on, give you a new share. Let's give you a little assessment. All right, so we've got a little overview in your mind, and we'll keep impressing this stuff in because there is overlap. Houses, you have to find some areas, and then you'll have the signs and then the planets, and it will kind of all come together. So what we're going to start doing is give you some structure. And we talked about this last time. We talked a little bit about Eddie Van Halen, and I did do a little bit of look and see what he did pass on, and he did pass on of cancer. He had a 4th-stage lung cancer. But then on the death certificate, this is so strange, and this would be interesting. We can look at it. He says cerebrovascular, problems, which is a stroke, and then underlying condition of pneumonia, a degraded bone marrow disorders, skin cancer on his head and neck, and irregular heartbeat. Okay, so we'll kind of look at some of those things, but we'll get there. All right, so what we're going to do is look at the first, the sign that rules each of these areas. It's, you want to look at the sign on the 1st, the 6th, the 8th, the 12th house, and then you can see what the ruler is. So I'll just walk you through this and then we'll go look at his chart. But just to give you something to think about while I'm kind of going through this, he has Libra on his is his ascendant. So it would be, house sign. And, on that first one, you would put Libra. And then what rules Libra? You put Venus. Okay. And then are there any planets in that house? If there are, you put them there. And then, what their ruler is, which we'll get there. The 6th house, the same thing. On him, his 12th house is Libra. And we already said the ruler is Venus, but he has Neptune in there. So I would write Neptune in Libra, and then ruler Venus, and indicate that here. So when we look at his chart, we'll see some of these Venus related areas and others. So we note the sun sign and we note the moon sign, and then any planets conjunct the ascendant. And we already, know that here in the 12th house, we saw Neptune, and it actually is. It's not just in his 12th, it's also conjunct his ascendant. So we put Neptune there. And you'll see this in a second, but I just want to go through this with you. You note if there's any stelliums. And basically, the true definition, I think, is 5 planets in a sign. But I start looking if there's like 3 planets in a sign, because there's a lot there. It's like a third almost. So I would just put that there. If there's 3 or more planets in a sign, make a note of it, because it's a heavy emphasis in that area. Okay, dominant elements. We just kind of want to see, is there a lot of fire, planets in fire signs or fire houses? You might put that, you can even see if there's, I like to do both. I like to see, the fire earth, air, and water in the signs, and then go look at the houses too. Because, like, say you don't see anything of fire, but you have all the kind of planets are in the fire houses. So that would kind of negate your thinking or offset it a little bit about, like, oh, they don't have any fire. Well, all the stuff's in fire houses. What do you mean? So you double check that way. And then the same with the quality. Is there a lot of cardinal signs? Is there no cardinal signs? How about fixed and mutable? And then how about, are there a lot, of their planets in those houses? Again, maybe they don't have any cardinal signs, but there's a lot of things in the cardinal houses. So that would kind of offset that. And that's a good point to bring up, because whenever you're really looking at astrology, you will find those things. They seem like they're opposing, but they're not really. It just gives you another nuance. You just learn to look deeper. So it's like, oh, there's no cardinal signs. It's like, well, but there's a lot of stuff in a cardinal house. So that kind of offsets it. So if you're reading sometimes a chart, that's computer generated, not talking to a live astrologer, you'll see those things. And that's why, because you'll see a lot of, back and forth like that. Okay. You also want to notice where the north and south node are located. And oftentimes the chart will only have like the north node on it. And you should know that the south node is exactly opposite, have to be. So if you have something at 1 degree Pisces, the other will be 1 degree Virgo. Okay. Any aspects, there's a lot here. We'll just start looking slowly, but you'll look at any aspects. It's like, especially, well, I like to look at it all. It's definitely the sun and the moon, because those are some of the biggest, parts of yourself. And then, you want to see maybe Mars, because that's where there's heat in the body. So do you have Mars, heating something, creating a little more fire or something, or not? And then Saturn indicates also coldness. So you kind of want to check that, make sure we check the aspects. And then just see if there's anything close, that's exact that you may want it to look up. Stationing planets. Okay, we haven't really talked a lot about this. You have to go look in ephemeris and see, say Mercury. Okay, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year, and in its retrograde cycle, it slows down to change directions both ways. So you'd want to check, is that sign, and that planet in that sign moving? Is it moving fast, or is it about to change direction? Is it slow? The reason being is, if it's almost stationary or just have changed directions, it's not going to be moving very fast at that time. So it's going to have a greater impact in the chart. So for instance, if Mercury had just gone either retrograde or direct when you were born, Mercury, even though it may not be, I don't know, who knows where it is, it will be more burned in your human photograph paper, so to speak. All right. Any current transits? Then we want to definitely look at, like, where Saturn is transiting. What part of your chart is it? Where are you in your Saturn return cycle? What aspects is Saturn making? Because it's a slower moving planet. It's like 2.5 years in every sign and kind of every house, based on the size of your house. Let me just, more or less, you have some charts with, that are more north or south that have unequal size houses. But anyway, it could be there, for years, definitely. Mars, we also want to see that, because that could indicate any kind of accident, trauma, inflammation, heat, overheating kind of energy. And then you also want to note the current north and south node, where if either way, if they are transiting over something natally, or the other way around, something natally over the nodes. So you kind of look both ways, like, well, we'll get there, but you want to look and see what's happening now to yours for sure. Okay, that is basically what you want to look for. There's more, but this is kind of the first level of organizing something to give you some ideas. So let's go put this into action. Let me switch for you. Okay. And give you, let's go look at, I think we're doing pretty good here. View chart and share. Okay, you should see Eddie Van Halen's chart. And we started to look at this a little bit and started to note what we have here. So let's get, there you go. Let's just do a light assessment because I know we just went through a lot, but I want to put a little bit into some practical. Maybe in another class, we'll just do a whole thing on somebody's chart. But I want to just kind of finish up today with just putting a little bit of this in, walk you through a little bit of this. All right, so we know that we said the first house, Venus rules, Venus, Libra, and Libra rules Venus. And then we know Venus is over here in the second house. And we just make a little note. And then we've got our sixth house, which we've got in Aries. And it's interesting, we know what rules Aries. Mars is right there on the fifth house. Nice. And then we have our eighth house of Taurus, and we have Venus rules that. So we have two Venuses, already. And then we have our 12th house of Libra, another Venus. So we've got three Venus ruled houses of health. All right. So it's just, we can't jump to conclusions, but we just have to note that. Okay. Venus stuff. So, once we learn more about planets and then the signs, you'll get more ideas. But this is how you have to just start doing the problem. All right. Those are our four first ones. And then his sun and his moon are both in Aquarius here. And that's a cold sign. Okay. Both of those, the sun is not the most vital when it's in Aquarius, and the moon either. So I'm just going to put a little minus sign on both of those. So that kind of, it's emphasizing some non-vitalness. Let me put that way. Okay. I would say putting the Aries, the Mars is in Aries, I would give that a plus. In the natural house of Leo, I give them a little plus on that, so you can kind of rate some of these things. The Aries and the Libra, opposite of their natural placements, I would kind of put a little negative there because, Libra wants to be in the seventh house where Aries is, and Aries wants to be in the first house where Libra is. So there's a little bit of a thing going on here with that. All right, so this is just we haven't even walked out of that little bit yet, and we can see how we have this little problem starting. All right, what else we got here? We have planets conjunct the ascendant, and we already see Neptune there. It's in the 12th house, and we already see it right there. And again, I'm not sure if it's his exact birth time. It may be a little bit more either way, but that could even be in the first house. Nonetheless, we just see, we're just going to kind of take it that it could be either way. I don't have a degree on this, but it's, it would be within a degree. So Neptune, it's in its natural house. This is a Pisces house. So Neptune likes being there. I would say that would go with the profession. I think that there was a lot of drug use, definitely. Drug use and alcohol abuse, not just your average marijuana smoker. I think there'd probably, quite a bit of other types of drugs, especially the era that he was living in and being, the type of musicians that they were. So that's kind of like right there. So I think it sort of flavors his personality, and then the fact that he has some of that unknown, trying to trace this around cancer. He should have been helped before all of this developed into cancer. That's last stage of not catching things, of not getting the body more alkaline. You can, all that, like drug use, partying, flying around, driving, the nightlife, blue lighting, loud amplifiers, just that whole bit is just real stressful to the body. And it, and unless you're really good and have like a personal chef and are really good with food and diet, your body's going to be swinging acid constantly. You're going to be in an acidic state, which then brings in cancer. And then I'm not sure, how much of if a smoker or anything he was for lung cancer, but there's a lot of other contributing things to that. So you can see that this is the end of a long haul of, of imbalance. So we have the Neptune in Pisces, in the Piscean house in Libra, bringing up this inherent ability to be imbalanced with him. Okay, kind of long-winded on that, but sometimes it takes that long when you see one of these and you see how it just unfolds. All right, how are we doing? Okay, let me wrap this up with just a couple of other things. So we would then, continue looking around. I don't see any stelliums, although we have 3 planets here in Aquarius. I said 3 or more, but so we'll look at that and we go, okay, so we got a cold area over in here. I'd want to know, what this is. And we also note we have the North Node in Capricorn, a cold sign in the 3rd house. And then we have the South Node in Cancer, which can move it in our 9th. Let's see, in the 9th house up here. So we would note kind of what those areas are. We have Capricorn bones, and then when he had a bone marrow problem, bone marrow disorder, we'd note Cancer, which would be digestive related, and it's the South Node, and that might have been part of the undoing of, creating a cancer condition because of the South Node and not nurturing himself here. That's like, it's not, it should be, but it's not. It's like, this is an area where things go out the window. So this nurturing goes out the window. I'll just have my Twinkie and my cigarette and my beer or whatever. I don't think it was the growing the sprouts and make sure I get my wheatgrass juice and have my multivitamin. And especially, I need extra minerals because I sweated a lot last night. It's like, nope, that didn't happen. Although his wife was a good cook and into that, I don't think she crossed this side of it. And then plus people have their own minds. Unless they have a mindset to do that, they're not going to do it. Look at their Aries on the cusp of the 6th house. That has no interest in health matters. That Aries and Virgo are in conjunct anyway. So it was like, I don't want to do it. I want to do it my way. I'm not even thinking about this till the end. All right. I think I'm going to leave it at that for today because this gives you a little bit. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want to see how this starts to unfold. And I think maybe we'll stay with his stuff, and we'll work through this some more and look at some of the signs and then do some more assessment. But we can definitely see, the areas of the body that we're getting cold, that we're starting to have some emphasis on. We see where Mars is. Saturn over here in the 1st house in Scorpio, so that's going to be interesting. Because that's part of the 8th house ruler. So yeah, we're going to just continue to see how this is. So I would urge you to just look at your own chart and just start taking notice of things. Just start looking at what's on, the ruler of your 1st house, 6th, 8th, 12th, any planets there. Go through some of these things and look at it in the light of health. All right, see you next time, and more to follow. Bye for now.